I discovered my wife's betrayal on what was supposed to be our romantic getaway, and in that moment, I knew lies would never define my future. My name is Emerson Windsor, and I'm 33 years old. I live a steady life as an HVAC technician, working honest hours and coming home to a house that's finally just mine. My wife, Martina Windsor, spent 3 years weaving deceptions while I maintained our home, paid our bills, and believed in our marriage. She planned her escape with a man named Jackson, draining our accounts and abandoning me in a strange city. But I refused to let her manipulation break me. Instead, I gathered evidence, secured legal counsel, and ensured she faced the consequences of her choices. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I'd convinced myself the getaway would fix everything. 3 days in Denver, just me and Martina, away from the daily grind that had been wearing us both down lately. The drive west was quiet, with Martina scrolling through her phone while I navigated the steady stream of traffic. Remember those road trips where silence felt comfortable? This wasn't one of them. The Hotel Monaco looked exactly like its website photos, nice enough to feel special without breaking the bank. Martina had insisted we needed this break. "We never do anything spontaneous anymore," she'd said last week. Those sharp features of hers twisted into what I now realize was calculation rather than concern. "Reservation for Windsor," I told the front desk clerk, watching him tap at his keyboard while Martina drifted toward the lobby windows, phone in hand as always. The new device she'd insisted on buying last month gleamed under the chandelier lights. "Here for 3 nights," the clerk confirmed, sliding over our keycards. "Room 714. Elevators are just around that corner." Dinner that first night was at some farm-to-table place Martina had picked. The food was good, but my wife's attention never left her screen. Between bites of her barely touched salmon, her thumbs danced across the glass, and every notification made her sit up straighter. "Work stuff?" I asked, trying to catch her eye. She didn't even look up. "Just need to handle a few things. You know that feeling when something's off, but you can't quite name it? Like when you walk into your house and sense someone's been there, but nothing's obviously missing? That's how dinner felt. But I chalked it up to travel fatigue and the altitude change. When you trust someone, you get really good at explaining away the warning signs. The next morning, I woke to empty sheets and the sound of pacing. Martina was already dressed, doing laps around our room while staring at her phone. The morning light caught her blonde hair, and for a second, she looked like the woman I'd married 3 years ago. Then another notification dinged, and her face changed, hungry, almost desperate. "There's supposed to be good hiking trails just outside the city," I suggested over breakfast in the hotel restaurant. "Weather's perfect for it." Martina pushed her untouched waffle around the plate. "Maybe later. I need to grab some things first." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'll take the car to that store we passed. Get some snacks and water for the trail." I nodded, finishing my coffee. "Want company?" "No." She said it too quickly, then softened her tone. I'll be quick. Just wait in the lobby. I won't be long." That was at 10 in the morning. By 2, I'd left 6 voicemails and sent dozens of texts. Each call went straight to voicemail after a single ring. She was declining them deliberately. The lobby's fake fireplace crackled away while I tried not to check my watch every 30 seconds. At 6:47 p.m., my phone finally buzzed. One new message. "Don't wait up. Jackson's here. He's what I need." The fluorescent lobby lights suddenly felt too bright, too harsh. My hands went numb, but I managed to hit dial. The phone rang once, twice. "Hello?" Her voice was different, lighter, almost giddy. The words scraped out of my throat. "You left me stranded in another state with nothing but a bag?" I fought to keep my voice steady, but the tremor slipped through. "Don't be so dramatic, Emerson." Martina's laugh felt like ice down my spine. "You've got your wallet. You've got your phone. You're a big boy. Figure it out." "Where's our car, Martina?" The lobby's fake fireplace kept crackling, a cheerful sound that made everything worse. "Where are you?" "With Jackson." She said his name like a prayer. "He showed up this morning. We're heading to Vegas for a few days." Another giggle bubbled through the line. "He makes me feel alive, Emerson. When was the last time you made me feel anything?" My free hand clenched into a fist. "We're married. 3 years, Martina. That means something. Does it?" Her voice turned sharp. 3 years of what? Netflix and takeout? Planning for a future that never gets more exciting than new kitchen cabinets? So, you steal our car? Empty our accounts? I pulled the phone away to check my banking app. New charges kept appearing. Restaurants, gas stations, a hotel booking. That's joint money you're spending, Martina, on your little adventure with Jackson. Oh, please, you'll land on your feet. You always do. She paused, and I heard a male voice in the background. That's what makes you so boring, Emerson. Always careful, always planning. Jackson understands spontaneity. The numbness in my chest crystallized into something harder. This isn't spontaneity. This is theft. This is abandonment. There will be consequences. Consequences? She laughed again, but it sounded forced now. What are you going to do? Call the police on your own wife? Ex-wife, I corrected her. By the time you get back, the papers will be filed. Whatever helps you sleep at night. Her voice went distant. Jackson's waiting. Don't call again. The line went dead. I stared at my phone until the screen dimmed, then opened the banking app again. The charges were like breadcrumbs marking their escape route. $89 at a steakhouse, $47 at a gas station outside of town, $198 at some boutique. A hotel reservation for $379 popped up as I watched. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The fury had hardened into something focused, something cold and precise. I grabbed my duffel bag from behind the lobby chair and walked to the front desk. Where's the nearest Greyhound station? The clerk gave me directions, 6 blocks east. I nodded my thanks and stepped out into the Denver evening. The air was thin and sharp in my lungs as I walked, rolling my bag over cracked sidewalks. The bus terminal smelled like diesel and desperation. I counted out cash for a ticket home, $142 that should have been spent on hiking gear or room service with my wife. The digital clock above the ticket counter read 8:17 p.m. Last bus leaves at 9, the agent told me, sliding over my ticket. I sat on a plastic chair, watching that clock tick forward. By the time Martina stumbled back from her Vegas fantasy, she'd find more than an empty house waiting. She thought she was writing the end of our story. She had no idea she'd just written the beginning of hers. The Greyhound pulled into my hometown station just after dawn. My shoulders ached from sleeping against the window, but my mind was clear, sharp, focused. I took a cab home, watching familiar streets blur past while my phone kept buzzing with overdraft alerts. The house looked exactly the same. 2-story Craftsman we'd bought last spring, blue shutters Martina had insisted on painting herself. But walking up that driveway felt like approaching a stranger's home. The key stuck in the lock for a moment, like even it was questioning my right to be there. Inside, her perfume hit me first, that expensive vanilla scent that used to make me smile. Now it just turned my stomach. I dropped my duffel by the door and walked straight to the kitchen table, our old wedding venue receipt still pinned to the corkboard like a bad joke. Right, I muttered, pulling out my laptop. Time to get organized. I spread everything across the table, marriage license from the fireproof box, bank statements from the filing cabinet, car title from the desk drawer. Each paper felt heavier than it should, weighted down with 3 years of promises now broken. The courthouse opened at 8. I watched the clock tick over while on hold, some tinny Muzak version of Love Story playing in my ear. Fitting. Family Court Services, a tired voice finally answered. I need information about filing for divorce, I said, the words tasting bitter but necessary. She walked me through the basics, forms needed, filing fees, timeline. I wrote everything down in the same notebook where Martina and I had once planned our future. Halfway through my questions, my phone buzzed with another bank alert. I checked it while still listening. $250 at some boutique in Vegas. My jaw clenched. After hanging up, I Googled divorce attorneys. One name kept coming up in reviews, Samira Veda. Sharp, strategic, gets results. Her office took my call immediately. We have an opening at 9 tomorrow morning, the receptionist offered. I'll take it. The rest of the morning became a blur of financial damage control. I called every credit card company, freezing joint accounts. The bank helped me open a new personal account, transferring what little remained of my latest paycheck. With each call, each form, each confirmation number, I felt the shock of betrayal crystallizing into something harder, more focused. Evening found me back at the kitchen table, staring at our wedding photo while waiting for Samira to return my call. In the frame, Martina beamed at the camera, her hand on my chest. Had she been planning this even then? My thumb traced the edge of the frame, remembering how she'd insisted on this exact shot. The phone rang, startling me from the memory. "Mr. Windsor?" The voice was crisp, professional. "This is Samira Veda returning your call. Thank you for getting back to me." I straightened in my chair. "My wife left me stranded in Denver yesterday to run off with another man. She took our car and she's draining our accounts." "Tell me everything," Samira said. "Start from the beginning." I did, laying out each detail while she listened. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "I can meet you first thing tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bring all the documentation you've gathered." "I'll be there." After hanging up, I walked through the living room, each step feeling more certain than the last. Martina's perfume still clung to the couch cushions where she'd lounged just days ago, probably texting Jackson while pretending to watch movies with me. My phone buzzed again, another overdraft alert. I lifted my head and whispered to the empty room, "This ends on my terms." Samira Veda's office sat on the 10th floor of a downtown high-rise, all glass and polished wood. Her assistant led me through double doors into a corner office where Samira stood to greet me, her dark suit crisp, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. "Mr. Windsor," she said, gesturing to a leather chair. "Let's begin." I settled in, placing my folder on her desk. The morning sun caught the gold bands of my wedding ring, and I fought the urge to tear it off. "Walk me through everything," Samira said, clicking her pen. "From the moment you arrived in Denver." I told her about the hotel check-in, Martina's distraction at dinner, the endless texting, how she'd volunteered to get the car for snacks and never returned. My voice stayed steady as I described the text message, the phone call, watching our accounts drain while stuck at a bus terminal. Samira nodded, making notes. "Do you have documentation?" "Everything." I opened my folder, laying out paper trails like playing cards. Bank statements showing withdrawals in Vegas, credit card charges for hotels, restaurants, screenshots of Martina's texts about Jackson that she sent to friends. The original message she left me with. Her eyes narrowed at the bank statements. "She's spending recklessly. This works in our favor." She tapped her pen against the desk. "We'll file immediately citing abandonment and financial misconduct. The faster we move, the less damage she can do." I remembered the vanilla scent still lingering on our couch. "What do you need from me?" "Everything. Bank records going back 6 months. Phone records showing her contact with Jackson, proof of the Denver incident, hotel receipts, bus ticket home, and we need documentation of her current activities." "I've got a neighbor watching the house," I said. "She's been seeing Martina come by with boxes, loading things into a car." Samira slid a stack of forms across her desk. "Sign these. We'll file today." My hand didn't shake as I signed each page. The pen felt solid, purposeful. Each signature was another nail in the coffin of my marriage. "What's our next move?" I asked. "Gather evidence. Document everything. I want proof of every dollar she's spending, every item she removes from the house. If neighbors have photos or security cameras caught anything, we want those too." I spent the afternoon at the bank, requesting detailed statements. The teller's eyes widened at the activity on our accounts, but she printed everything without comment. Walking home that evening, Mrs. Chu from next door hurried over to me. "Mr. Windsor," she whispered, pressing an envelope into my hands. "I saw them yesterday. Thought you should have this." Inside was a photo taken from her window. Martina and a dark-haired man I assumed was Jackson, loading boxes into the trunk of our car. Her face was clear in the shot, laughing as she handed him another box. "Thank you," I said quietly. Back inside, I spread everything across the dining room table. Bank statements, text screenshots, Mrs. Chu's photo. Each piece of evidence another weight in the scale of justice. "She left me stranded," I whispered to the pile of damning papers. "I'll leave her ruined." 3 days after meeting with Samira, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost sent it to voicemail. These days, every unexpected call felt like another ambush waiting to happen. "Hello?" I answered, bracing myself. "Is this Emerson Windsor?" A man's voice, tense and clipped. "This is Jackson." My grip tightened on the phone. I'd imagined this conversation a dozen ways, but now that it was happening, a strange calm settled over me. "Yes, it is." "I found divorce papers in Martina's bag." His words tumbled out fast, anger threading through them. "Papers naming you as her husband of 3 years. I need answers, now." I leaned back in my office chair, watching dust motes dance in the afternoon sun. How many times had Martina sat across from me at dinner, texting this man while I talked about my day? "What exactly did she tell you about me?" "That you were her ex. That you couldn't accept the breakup, Wouldn't stop hassling her. Jackson's voice cracked slightly. She said you were obsessed, wouldn't let her move on. That's why she had to be careful about being seen with me. The lies felt both shocking and completely predictable. I remembered the way she'd paced our hotel room in Denver, phone clutched like a lifeline. Well, Jackson, here's the truth. Martina and I have been married for 3 years. We shared a house, bank accounts, everything, until she abandoned me in Denver to run off with you. Jesus Christ. His breath hissed through the line. Jesus fucking Christ. She lied to you the same way she lied to me, I said quietly. The silence stretched between us, heavy with realization. I could almost see him processing it all, every story she'd told him, every excuse she'd made, crumbling like sandcastles at high tide. I need to think, Jackson muttered. The line went dead. I set my phone down carefully, staring at the call log. Another piece of evidence for Samira's growing file. The afternoon light had shifted, throwing long shadows across my desk. Somewhere out there, Martina's carefully constructed fantasy was starting to collapse. That night, I walked through the quiet house, replaying Jackson's shaken voice. The kitchen still held traces of our life together. The copper pots she'd insisted on buying, the wine rack we'd mounted together one Sunday afternoon. Now they felt like props in an abandoned play. In my home office, I logged the call details and printed the phone record. Now she's losing him too, I muttered, sliding the paper into Samira's evidence folder. The house creaked and settled around me, its familiar sounds somehow different now that I was the only one here to hear them. 3 years of marriage reduced to file folders and exhibit labels. But unlike Martina's lies, my evidence was solid, real, and growing stronger by the day. I'd just finished reorganizing my home office when my phone lit up with a text from Sandy, a regular at the coffee shop where Martina and I used to get our Sunday morning lattes. "You need to hear about what just happened at Giovanni's," the message read. I called her immediately. Sandy worked there as a hostess, and her voice was still charged with excitement when she picked up. "Emerson, it was intense. Your wife, Martina, she was having dinner with that guy Jackson in our parking lot." My pen hovered over the legal pad where I'd been documenting everything. "Tell me exactly what you saw." They were screaming at each other, like full-on public meltdown. Jackson kept saying, "You're married. This whole time you were married." And Martina was crying, trying to grab his arm. Sandy paused for breath. He shoved her hand away, not violent but definitely angry, got in his car and just left her standing there. She was a mess, mascara everywhere. I jotted down the details, including the time and date. Did anyone else see this? Half the restaurant was watching through the windows. My manager even considered calling security, but then Jackson stormed off. After thanking Sandy, I immediately forwarded her account to Samira. Within minutes, my phone rang. "This is exactly what we needed," Samira said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. "A public confrontation like this? Perfect. And given how angry Jackson seems about being deceived, I bet he'd testify if we asked." "You think he'd do that? Men don't like discovering they've been used as affair partners in someone else's marriage." His testimony would destroy any chance of Martina playing victim. That afternoon, we filed for temporary exclusive possession of the house. The judge, reviewing our evidence of Martina's abandonment and financial misconduct, granted it immediately. I drove home that evening feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Standing in the driveway, I looked at my house with new eyes. The porch light cast a warm glow across the familiar brick facade. I walked up the steps, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. For the first time since Denver, the silence felt peaceful instead of accusing. I moved through each room, noting small changes I wanted to make. The throw pillows Martina had insisted on could go to Goodwill. Maybe I'd finally set up that reading nook in the spare room she'd used for her excessive wardrobe. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the counter. No need to tiptoe around Martina's evening phone calls anymore. No more pretending not to notice her distraction during dinner. The house was mine now, legally and emotionally. That night, I climbed into bed without the knot of dread that had become my constant companion. The sheets still smelled faintly of fabric softener. I'd washed away her perfume days ago. As I drifted off, I felt something close to peace. A thunderous knocking jolted me awake. Sunlight was streaming through the windows as I stumbled to consciousness, more pounding at the front door. I threw on a t-shirt and hurried downstairs. Through the frosted glass panels, I could make out 2 uniformed figures. When I opened the door, I found myself facing a pair of police officers, one of them holding what looked like official paperwork. I opened the door, squinting against the morning sun. Two officers stood on my porch, their expressions professionally neutral. "Mr. Windsor?" the taller one asked, consulting his clipboard. "We have court documents to serve you." My stomach clenched as I accepted the thick envelope. The officers didn't linger. Their job was delivery, nothing more. As the patrol car pulled away, I closed the door and sank into my living room armchair, hands trembling slightly as I tore open the envelope. The legal language swam before my eyes until certain phrases jumped out. Pattern of controlling behavior, emotional and financial abuse, feared for her safety. My breath caught in my throat. Martina was claiming I had been abusive? The same woman who'd abandoned me in Denver, drained our accounts, and run off with another man? Remember those moments when your whole world tilts sideways? When something so absurd happens that you can't quite process it? This was one of those. I sat there, reading and rereading the motion, my mind racing through every interaction, every conversation Martina and I had ever had. Had she been planning this all along? Building some fictional narrative of abuse to justify her betrayal? The familiar scent of coffee from my morning brew turned sour in my stomach. False accusations can stick harder than truth. I'd seen it happen to others. One lie, repeated often enough, could poison everything I'd built. My hands were steadier when I reached for my phone, though. Some people crack under pressure. I get clearer, calmer, more focused. Samira answered on the second ring. "They just served me," I said without preamble. "Martina's claiming abuse." "Take a deep breath," Samira replied, her voice steady. "We knew she might try something like this. What evidence does she provide?" "None, just allegations." "Good. Then we let the facts speak. Send me everything you have showing your character. Bank records proving financial stability, employment history, community involvement, any neighbors who can vouch for the peaceful nature of your household?" I thought of the Hendersons next door, who'd had us over for barbecues. "Several. Get statements, written, notarized if possible. We'll build a wall of evidence so high she can't climb over it." After hanging up, I pulled out my filing cabinet's bottom drawer, the one where I kept everything important. 3 hours later, my dining room table looked like a command center. Bank statements showing regular deposits and responsible spending. Letters from my employer documenting my reliability. Photos from neighborhood gatherings showing Martina and me, smiling together, no hint of fear or tension in her posture. The Hendersons came through with a detailed statement about never hearing arguments or seeing any concerning behavior. They even mentioned how Martina had bragged about our relationship at their daughter's graduation party just 2 months ago. By evening, I had assembled everything into a 3-inch binder, each section clearly labeled and indexed. The weight of it felt solid in my hands, truth made tangible. My earlier fear had hardened into something else, determination. I slipped the binder into my briefcase, my voice barely a whisper in the quiet house. She underestimated the wrong man. The courtroom's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as I followed Samira through the heavy wooden doors. My evidence binder felt like armor against my side. Martina sat at the opposite table, wearing the same calculated smile she'd used to mask lies throughout our marriage. Her attorney shuffled papers, but I noticed the nervous tap of his pen against the desk. "All rise," the bailiff called. As we settled back into our seats, I caught Martina shooting me a sidelong glance. 3 months ago, that look might have twisted my gut into knots. Now? I just focused on breathing steady, remembering the stack of evidence we'd gathered. You know that moment before a storm breaks? When the air gets thick and heavy and you can feel the pressure building? That's what it felt like as Samira stood, her heels clicking against the polished floor. "Your Honor," she began, "I'd like to present evidence of Mrs. Windsor's deliberate financial misconduct and false allegations." One by one, Samira laid out our case. Bank statements showing thousands withdrawn after she'd abandoned me in Denver. Credit card charges for hotels, restaurants, shopping sprees, all while I was arranging bus fare home. Photos from our neighbors showing Martina loading boxes into Jackson's truck in broad daylight. Then came the screenshots. Samira's voice carried clear and sharp as she read, "Bleeding Emerson dry, can't wait to start fresh with Jackson. Mrs. Windsor sent this message 3 days before abandoning my client in Denver." I watched Martina's confident smile crack slightly. She shifted in her chair, tugging at her sleeve, her old tell when things weren't going her way. Remember how she'd fidget with that sleeve whenever I caught her in small lies during our marriage? Some habits don't change. Furthermore, Samira continued, producing a sealed envelope, we have a sworn statement from Jackson Matthews himself. The courtroom rustled with whispers. Martina's head snapped up, her eyes widening. Mr. Matthews confirms that Mrs. Windsor deliberately concealed her marriage status, represented herself as single, and made false claims about Mr. Windsor being an obsessive ex-boyfriend who wouldn't let go. Martina's attorney rose halfway, then sat back down. What could he say? The evidence was right there, in black and white. Your Honor, Samira concluded, Mrs. Windsor's claims of abuse are not only unsupported by evidence, but are demonstrably false. She abandoned her husband, misused marital funds, and is now attempting to manipulate this court with unfounded accusations. The judge nodded, reviewing the documents before her. I'll review all submitted evidence and deliver my ruling next week, Wednesday at 9 a.m. As we filed out of the courtroom, sunlight streamed through the courthouse windows, warming my face. For the first time since Denver, I felt the weight lifting. Not gone, but lighter. Samira touched my arm briefly, a silent acknowledgement of a battle well fought. Standing on the courthouse steps, watching Martina hurry to her car without looking back, I wondered, what else would she try before this was over? 7 days can feel like forever when you're waiting for someone to decide your future. I checked my email probably 50 times that morning before the notification finally popped up. My hands shook a little as I opened the judge's order, but there it was in black and white. Exclusive use of the house granted to me pending final divorce proceedings. I called Samira immediately. We got it. Excellent, she said, and I could hear the satisfied smile in her voice. The evidence was clear. Go home, Emerson. It's yours alone now. The drive home felt different knowing Martina couldn't just show up anymore. Remember how you felt as a kid? That first time your parents let you have your own room? That mixture of excitement and responsibility? It was something like that, but wrapped in layers of hurt and vindication. I walked through the front door, dropping my keys in the dish by the entryway, the one Martina always ignored, leaving her keys scattered wherever they fell. The house felt different now, quieter, mine. Moving from room to room, I traced my fingers along the walls we'd painted together that first summer. Funny how memories can sit in the paint like that. But they felt distant now, like watching scenes from someone else's life. Thank you, Samira, I said when I called her back. I couldn't have done this without you. Don't celebrate too early, she cautioned, her tone serious. Martina won't stop here. Be ready. I knew she was right. People like Martina don't just accept defeat. They twist it into ammunition. What should I do? Document everything. Back up your files. Contact your bank again. Lock down anything she might try to access. So that's what I did. Spent the whole evening building walls around what was mine. Backed up every document to a secure cloud drive. Called the bank to verify recent security changes. Double-checked all my accounts. It felt good, like reinforcing the foundations of a house you know a storm's coming for. Night settled in, and I found myself standing at the living room window. Headlights swept past on the street, each one making me wonder if Martina was out there, plotting her next move. Somewhere across town, she was probably scrambling for a place to stay, watching her carefully constructed fantasy life crumble. Meanwhile, I stood in my house, steady ground under my feet. My phone buzzed. Martina's name lit up the screen. This isn't over. You'll regret humiliating me. You know what the old me would have done? Agonized over those words, tried to figure out what she meant, maybe even felt guilty. But that version of me got left behind in a Denver hotel lobby. I looked at her threat for a long moment, then simply deleted it. No response needed. No anxiety necessary. I placed the phone face down on my nightstand, the same way I'd done hundreds of times before. But tonight, it felt like putting down more than just a device. It felt like setting down the weight of her manipulation. The house creaked and settled around me, familiar sounds that used to keep me awake now feeling like quiet approval. Martina could threaten all she wanted. I had the truth, the evidence, and most importantly, I had my resolve. The courthouse hadn't changed since our last hearing, but everything else had. I sat next to Samira, our evidence arranged in precise stacks before us. My tie felt too tight, but I resisted the urge to adjust it. Showing nerves now wouldn't help anyone. Ready? Samira whispered, arranging the final exhibits. I nodded, keeping my eyes forward. Born ready. The door creaked open, and Martina shuffled in. Gone was the polished appearance she'd maintained throughout our marriage. Her hair hung limp, her designer clothes replaced by something that looked hastily borrowed. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but there was still that defiance in her stance, that tilt of her chin that said she wasn't finished fighting. The judge entered, and we all rose. As we settled back into our seats, I caught Martina shooting me a look that could have stripped paint. I kept my face neutral, remembering Samira's advice. Let her drama highlight your composure. Your Honor, Martina's attorney began. My client has endured years of controlling behavior from Mr. Windsor. His financial restrictions— Objection, Samira cut in smoothly. No evidence has been presented to support these claims. In fact, our exhibits demonstrate the opposite. The judge nodded. Proceed with facts, counselor. I watched as Martina's attorney fumbled through weak accusations. Each one felt like a desperate grab at smoke. Meanwhile, Samira methodically stacked our evidence. Bank statements showing Martina's spending sprees with Jackson, hotel receipts from their rendezvous, the neighbors' photos of them loading up our car. Then came Jackson's sworn statement. Samira read it aloud, her voice carrying every damning word. Martina Windsor deliberately concealed her marriage status from me. When confronted, she admitted to using her husband's resources to fund our relationship while planning to leave him stranded. Martina's face flushed red. She whispered frantically to her attorney, who just shook his head. The judge turned to me. Mr. Windsor, would you like to make a statement? I stood, my hands steady now. The words I'd practiced felt natural, honest. Your Honor, 3 years of marriage ended when my wife stranded me on a holiday trip, emptied our funds, and built her affair on lies. I filed for divorce immediately. Every dollar spent was ours, not hers. The courtroom fell silent. Even the usual shuffle of papers seemed to pause. The judge studied the evidence spread before him, flipping through pages with methodical precision. Each second stretched like taffy, making minutes feel like hours. My hands found the edge of the table, gripping tight. The wood felt cool against my palms, anchoring me in this moment. Beside me, Samira sat perfectly still, radiating quiet confidence. Across the aisle, Martina's leg bounced nervously under the table. The judge set down the last document and reached for his gavel. The sound of him lifting it seemed to echo in my ears. This was it, the moment that would draw the final line between my old life and whatever came next. Time seemed to stop as the judge raised the gavel, ready to deliver the ruling that would end everything. The gavel cracked against wood, and silence fell across the courtroom. In the matter of Windsor versus Windsor, the judge began, his voice steady and clear. Based on the evidence presented, this court grants the divorce petition. He paused, shuffling papers. Furthermore, given the documented financial misconduct and abandonment, the marital home is awarded solely to Mr. Windsor. My chest tightened. Samira's hand touched my arm briefly. Additionally, the judge continued, all marital savings are to be restored to Mr. Windsor's accounts. Mrs. Windsor's request for spousal support is denied due to her deliberate misuse of marital funds during the period of separation. I heard Martina's sharp intake of breath from across the aisle. Her attorney leaned in, whispering urgently, but she just sat there, face drained of color. For once, she had nothing to say. This court is adjourned. The gavel fell one final time. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. 3 years of marriage ended in 15 minutes of legal pronouncements. But it felt right, clean, like setting a broken bone. Congratulations, Samira said quietly, gathering our documents. Justice served. I nodded, watching Martina rush out with her attorney. The click of her heels against courthouse tile faded into nothing. Just like that, she was gone. Outside, the morning clouds broke, sending shafts of sunlight across the courthouse steps. I stood there for a moment, letting the warmth sink into my shoulders. You ever notice how the air feels different after a storm passes? That's what this moment felt like. The weeks that followed moved like water, steady, cleansing, finding new paths. I cooked dinners in my quiet kitchen, no more walking on eggshells. The house felt bigger somehow, filled with peace instead of tension. Every room slowly shed the memories of arguments, of suspicious silences, of lies wrapped in casual texts. I rebuilt my savings, dollar by dollar. Some nights, I'd sit at the kitchen table with my laptop, watching the numbers climb back towards stability. No more mysterious withdrawals, no more charges from hotels I'd never visited. Through the grapevine, I heard about Martina's new life. She'd landed in a studio apartment off the interstate, the kind with paper-thin walls and temperamental heating. Her credit cards were maxed, her new freedom bought with debt she couldn't escape. Jackson? He disappeared completely, blocked her number, moved on to simpler pastures. You know what's funny about betrayal? Everyone thinks it's the end of your story. But sometimes it's just clearing the ground for something better, like demolishing a house with a bad foundation. Yeah, it hurts to watch it fall, but now you can build something solid. I stood at my front door that night, key turning in the lock. The mechanism clicked, secure and certain. She stranded me once, I whispered to the quiet house, but I'm the one who left her with nothing. The door closed behind me, and I was home. Really home, in a way I hadn't been for years. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.